It's like Tinder, you swipe right if you got it, or you swipe left if you don't. But I'm always in the middle. Hello guys, it's Sophia here, and today's story is a really painful one to talk about because it has been a 5-year long relationship, but I think it's a necessary one for both of us to move on and grow, and that is the breakup between me and Quizlet. Okay, enough with the let's talk a little bit about our story. Well, it goes way back to 2017 when I first came across this app called Quizlet, and I have been a part of the game since then. I'm confident to say that I'm also a dedicated ambassador who have recommended this app to a lot of my friends and my students. So here's the thing, I had a big problem with Quizlet, especially the app on my phone, and here I even made a list for you guys. Number one, it lacks the search feature. So imagine when you encounter a new word, but it seems a little bit familiar to you, and you wonder whether you have logged that word in your stack of vocabulary, but you can't do that on your phone. And you will have to turn your laptop and press Ctrl F to search for that word. So it's a big setback for me because I mainly study Chinese on my phone. Besides, sometimes I want to check whether, like this word share the same root with another that I have already memorized, like 计数的计 and 计较的计, but it's again impossible to do that on your phone. Number two is that its algorithm is not advanced enough to justify the whole space repetition thing. To be honest, I'm not really sure because Quizlet is not really transparent about their whole algorithm thing. But when I'm studying in flashcard mode, it has only 2 options. It's like Tinder, you swipe right if you got it, or you swipe left if you don't. But I'm always in the middle. I'm always like, I vaguely remember something about this, but I don't really know how to use it in its entirety. So it's, like a little bit confusing. Moreover, when the number of vocabulary surpasses a certain threshold, let's say when I reach 1,200 words, and I'm currently working on the 100 new words, and I accidentally turn off the app and it restarts, which means the stack also restarts itself, then I have to start from zero, from number 1. It's like from studying ephemeral to studying I, we, you, and that is a literal nightmare for me, and that has already happened to me several times. The only solution you have is to split the stack into smaller ones, so like it's easier to control. But I don't want to do that because I want to look at the total number of vocabulary I have learned, and splitting them into smaller ones makes them not as motivational. What about the star feature, you may ask? Well, the star feature is about as useful as shampoo to a monk. And what about the setting exam date feature, where like you log in the date and they will send you a reminder to revise accordingly? If I'm studying for an exam, that basically means I'm studying 2 or 3 days beforehand. I need no reminder that an exam is coming. And when I'm studying a language, it's more like a hobby, and I don't want to stress myself more than necessary, so no thanks. Number 3, this is more specifically for holographs language learner like Chinese, is that it's almost impossible to learn the vocabulary both ways because I had to leave the pinyin, which is the pronunciation, and the example in there because it has only 2 sides of the card. That means that I can only study it from Chinese to English, and I cannot do that in reverse, which is from English to Chinese. So that is also really annoying because especially when I'm trying to improve my speaking and writing skill, it really not good for my reflex. Okay, number 4, you cannot edit your stack of vocabulary in real time. So let's say I'm using it, I'm studying it in flashcard mode, and I notice a spelling mistake, which happens a lot. I cannot immediately fix it whatsoever. What I have to do is to turn on the computer, to turn on edit and Control F to find the word and fix it, which is another way to say that I never fix them. So my final point is that Quizlet is too minimalistic. There's almost no way to tinker with it and customize it to my need compared with dynamic apps like Anki. And in conclusion, I don't recommend it to anyone who want to have their whole vocabulary in one place and want to take control of, you know, where you're studying and edit them and customize them according to your preference. But please keep in mind that I'm not saying this app does no good. If so, I wouldn't have used it for 5 years. It's just that the uncomfortabilities outweighs the strengths, and I still recommend it to anyone who's looking for a simple and free app to study, you know, like just like 100 to 200 vocabulary. That is okay. So I decided that it's time for me to break up and move on to a better partner, which is Google Sheet. Why? Number one, it syncs across all devices smoothly, and I'm not just talking about the data, it's also about the features. With almost all of its most prominent features are also available on the phone version, so that is a big plus point for me. And you can easily search, easily copy paste, which I does a lot when I'm studying, you know, like when I have an example that contains all the 3 new vocabulary I'm learning, I can easily copy paste them in one click. And number 2 is that I can easily separate the things I need to memorize into as more blocks as I want. In my case is I separate them into 7 different columns, and that allows me to easily, you know, like swap the sequence of learning, like when I'm learning from Chinese to English, from English to Chinese. And finally, the third point is that it's really dynamic and easily customizable for anyone. You know, it has all kinds of functions and formula. Whatever you want, you just search for it on the internet, and like it's your own app. You can create your own vocabulary studying app. Okay, so now I will show you how I study vocabulary on Google Sheets. As you can see here, I just simply split it into 6 different columns. The first one is a progress bar. Next to it is the vocab itself, date memorized. I will come back to this later. The pronunciation, example, and finally the translation. As for the progress bar, I just use a color system of 3 colors. Red means that I have not memorized it. Green means that I have memorized the word, and yellow means that the word is still easily mistaken and it takes me a while to recall it. And that's pretty much it. So let's take an example. I often study this on my phone, so it's easily zoomed in, but you can still do that just fine on your laptop. I will zoom in, and then I will look at the word and question myself, how is this pronounced? What does it mean? How can I put this in a sentence? If I can recall all of that comfortably, I will put an X in the progress column, and it will automatically turn to the shade of green because of conditional formatting. You will click on format, click on conditional formatting, and create a simple format that state when the cell contains an X, no matter capitalized or not, it will immediately turn to the shade of green I want. And why an X? Because then I can easily filter it out so that it will declutter the whole thing. It will only shows the not memorized words left. It also serves a purpose when I create a feature called left to memorize. It's just basically subtotal, which count the number of rows that have text in it. So I count the whole B column, which is where the vocabulary is, and then I use concat to label it left to memorize, so I can put the whole thing into one single block at the top, so that whenever I open it, I will immediately know that how far I've come, and I still have this many words left to study. Now let's come to the super feature of my vocabulary Google Sheet, which is the date memorized. It's the most complex one, but still it's super easy, don't worry. Basically, the purpose of this is that whenever I mark a word as memorized, it will immediately automatically add the timestamp, the date that action happened. So like, let's say I want to check how many words I have memorized in August, whether I've met my goal of studying, say, 90 vocabulary a month. I can easily do that by filtering with the conditions that is between 2021 and, say, August, first date 2021, September, the first date. Okay, and remember to check their X box because you want to see the memorized vocabulary. And as you can see, I have memorized 61 words in August. It also helped me learn with spaced repetition in mind, because you know, you may have memorized this word today, but you will easily forget it after 1 month or 2 months. So I set a goal for myself that at the end of each month, I will look back at the words I have memorized the month before. So let's say today is the 31st day of August, then I will need to review the words I have already memorized in July. So again, I will also just use the between conditions to choose between the first day of July, the first day of August, and then I can see that I will just like the new vocabulary, I will look at them, zoom in, look at them and see if I still remember them. If I forget this word, I will just delete the X character and it will put the word back into my stack of vocabulary to learn. Okay, now then how do I do this with the date memorized? How do it automatically add the date? Because if you have to manually add that date, it will be really laborious, and the harder it is, the less likely that you can do it. So I just copy a code from a few lines of code from a blog on the internet. I will link the link down below. But before that, you will need to click on tools, click on script editor, and remember to log out of other other Google accounts so that you can open the script editor. So I copy the code and I change the sheet name, the head, the name of the column. It basically means that when the first column for me in this case is this progress column, has no data in it, then the date memorized column is also blank. But when you add any data in it, the date memorized, which is my X character, it will immediately timestamp the date of the actions. And that's also the end of today's video. Please comment down below if you have any question or request for me, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. See you next video.